Da da da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out, let people know I've gone live. And in the meantime, if you've never met me before, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And oh my goodness, was I covering some topics today? I tried to stay in the topic of guilt and shame, but early in the morning, I already knew what I wanted to talk about in respects to that. And then I just went about my day, and then just things just started not piling on, but come across my path that took my interest and content that stretched me a little bit. Like, I do like to grow. I do like to move and take on new lessons, new experiences, new conversations, but I do everything in baby steps. I've been here on YouTube 10 years. It says it right there. I do things in baby steps. I think a lot of the problems in the world today is because people jump in so quickly without even thinking, without even giving it a thought, right? And I'm that person too. I am inspired. I am anxious. I get excited. And I know that feeling like I'm a horse behind a gate. I use that analogy because my dad loved the horse races, right? But I'm like that horse behind the gate, antsing, right? Ready to go, right? Waiting for that gunshot. And sometimes, and I've heard this phrase many times along the way, you know, having my foot on the gas and having my foot on the brakes at the same time. I still do it. I go into the lessons and sometimes I think I really got a handle on things until, right, you have an experience, a conversation, or a trigger to recognize, like, yeah, you didn't get too far in that lesson, Cindy. And that's quite often why things repeat. And it's because we get part of the lesson, and maybe we get a good lesson, but it's not the lesson we're supposed to be in. And sometimes we're taking a lesson that's so far behind us that we're just sitting there, and you wonder why things go in one ear and out the other because, right, if you don't understand it, why would you sit in it, right? I sat on a lot of different topics today. And but like I said, I jotted what I kind of wanted to talk about early in my day. It was I don't know what I was inspired by, a thought, a conversation. Oh, it was our premiere, Wab Canoe, and I shouldn't say that with a little bit of a laugh, but I was trying to figure out who I had heard this from. And when I heard, that's where the giggle was. But then I thought in the respect in why I heard from him today. We have an emergency. They called in the big guns in the government. They're going to send the army in. We got wildfires going on over all over this province, and the government has said they're going to come in. They've already evacuating one of the cities. Oh my goodness, I just had it on tip of my tongue. But like I said, I've been in all kinds of content today. But with that one respect to that, you know, I was thinking about the government and in respect to my situation in my own life. And looking at the government in a way as what they do for us, and what they don't do for us, because we're always grumbling and complaining, right? And I'm thinking, for myself, I believe the government has done a lot for me in my 20s. You guys know, if you've hung out with me for any length of time, I weighed 311 pounds. And, I had a great doctor, family doctor, who took an interest in me. Every once in a while in my life, right, people would pick it up and think they'd help me along a little bit. And he was one of them. And without my knowledge, he found a specialist who did gastric bypasses. Only one person in Canada. He found him, and he happened to be working in the city at the time. I happened to be the very last person in Manitoba to have this operation, which was the gastric bypass. They still do it. At that time, it was stomach stapling. Nowadays, they use the rubber bands, right? And they do it that way. But this amazing doctor, he set up the referral, and I actually got in, and I had an opportunity to change my life, to have my fantasy, my dream, because that's all it was in my life, to be able to wear beautiful clothes and to date and to, right, have a fairy tale wedding. And I got to have all that stuff. It was just a miracle how that all played out for me, because I was so sad and I was so down and out, and I could never pull myself up in any way. And because when you're in that state, there is no opportunity for those miracles, those experiences, those conversations, those people, those souls to come into your life, because they just don't want to be around it, right? And in these decisions and choices that I made along the way, I found myself in a different life, in a different light. And I had so much shame just come off of me in that experience of losing all that weight. I'm grateful, right, for that experience, and I'm grateful that this province took into consideration my emotional and mental well-being, as well as my physical well-being, because I got to have plastic surgeries that I would not have been able to afford, being in that low income status in my life in comparison to other citizens in this province that I live in. And I brightened up, I lightened up, I I gave myself a chance. I was so proud of myself, because even though I had that operation, I didn't even use that operation until after I lost the weight. I applied myself, I dedicated myself, and I ended up losing 160 pounds in, like, well, in a year. 160 pounds. And like I said, I was so proud. I got to go to my 10-year high school reunion. And, right, those men who were at the time boys when I was going to school, who treated me so badly, were on my tail during that entire visit back to my high school years, which I didn't find enjoyable until, right, I opened up a little bit in my senior years, got a little bit of experience and teachers again, and these kind souls that every once in a while took interest in me and got me in drama and made me speak in front of the class, and, right, that somehow I bloomed a little bit, right? Enough to make some good choices in my life, right? And even making bad choices, because every choice you make was an adventure, whether it was a good adventure or a bad adventure. It was a venture. But when I lost all that weight and got to recognize that, maybe in reality, call it reality, it's not the outside that counts, it's what's in the inside. But in the projection of what the world had always given me, it was always, what's on the outside counts. And I got a good realization of that when I had lost all that weight. I didn't recognize that it had anything to do with me brightening up and being happy and making my dreams and fantasies and goals come true, because I wasn't even woke at the time, but I was happy. I was in a positive state. My life was looking up. But remember, right? I was a gambling addict, and shame steered my life. And, it didn't take long after I'd created these beautiful dreams. And I'm grateful that experience. I mean, right? I never got to 311 pounds again, but I've gained 50 pounds in that span of, how long has it been? 35, 30, 30, 30 years? Yeah, oh my goodness, it's been a long time. And it changed me, but it also at the same time it started to open me up, right? Still right into my 50s before I realized any true impact and opportunity and what my choices actually brought into my life and how they affected my life and affected the lives around me, right? But it really got me to recognize the shameful state that I had brought myself into in some choices that I made. And, right now, I recognize that not as shame. There's guilt that I coped that way, but it saved my life at the time. And the funny thing is, it could have been the most wonderful, happiest, happily ever after in my entire life, right? But because I allowed my addiction to gambling uh, to get a hold on me, uh, I lost a hold of my marriage. And the shame in that, the shame for my family, because I was the first one, right, in my family to ever get a divorce. Never even knew anybody that ever had divorces. But then again, you know, 60s, 70s, it really wasn't the norm until, right, probably the late 80s and 90s when it was a little bit more acceptable. But I felt a lot of shame in that. So going back to the politics part of it, because I had kind of two stories going on at the same time. It was an emergency alert. Our phones go off like an alarm and gives us notification and instructions of what's going on and what we should do in that. And it got me to thinking about the government and and what it has done for me, because I feel just the fact that I got to have that operation and the the operations afterwards in the cosmetic surgery, right? In correcting everything. It was an amazing gift, but at the same time, I have to, right, recognize that it was an investment that they had made in me, right? That if they gave me this operation, I wouldn't be in the medical system. And because we don't pay for our medical here, that, right, I would have cost the government lots of money down the road, whether it was with the heart disease like my dad had, or the arthritis like my mom had, or the diabetes like my grandmother and my sisters had, right? It would have caused me a lot of problems. And I trust that it no doubt would have, right? So it was an investment in that. So whether it was a caring, respective move on their part, it doesn't matter because it was a gift to me, right? And it opened up my eyes to so many things. It offered up so many gifts, in my life that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to have if I didn't have that operation when I did too, because I do believe I was in my late 30s. I think it was 27 or 28 years old when I had that operation. And my life just got picked up, right? Like a beautiful waltz. And it stayed that way. Well, I don't know how long it actually stayed because the problems came in too. Because even though I fixed myself physically, right? Uh, that weight was gone. The the body was in decent shape because of the plastic surgery. I was happy for a while, but it was only for a while because I didn't fix the inside. I didn't fix the inside, and it because it woke me up about this idea, right? It's what's in the inside that counts. And then to wake up to realize, because I was getting chased by men and people wanted to be around me, like my life had done such a 180 that it was obvious to me that I had just kind of held on to that idea that that was true, when in actuality it wasn't, because I was treated different. My dreams and my goals and my fantasies were all coming true because, right, the outside was what was being appreciated. Now I know a little bit differently because with a few lessons along my belt, right? It was that happiness and joy and that optimism that kind of burst into my life that made all that happen. But again, I wasn't woke to any of these ideas. And in that gambling and lying to my husband about where the bill money was and where my tip money was, right? I didn't like doing that. And the guilt and the shame it would just eat at me, right? And I went down the negative route again, right? I went down that negative route. Hello, Eugene. Hello, Eugene. I went down that negative route again, and I got stuck there. And I got stuck there till I found, well, I think it was a process, right? A lot of it happened to me or happened for me in a state where I didn't need to be aware, right? I was aware of the changes going on, but I wasn't looking into it anyway. And then, right, started to, right? It was just click, 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 and questions and curiosities and, right? And the next thing you know, right, I was, I was, I was in it. Let's just call it that. I was in it, and I've been in it ever since. So, in looking at this word, shame, I just wanted to kind of tie it up a little bit because I'll be going on to something a little bit different tomorrow. Probably this because I did not get to this part because it was part of my day, right? It was part of me in that contemplation about what the government had done for me, right? And whether it was truly something because they cared about me as a citizen, or was it a little bit of an investment now for a little bit less investment later? And for sure, no question, it was the latter. But for whatever it was, I'm taking it as a gift. And I am so grateful for my family doctor, who I know is probably passed by now. Um, but yeah, it changed my life, and it might even set me on this road. But who's to say? I don't look too. I know it's strange, but I don't look too deep into those aspects, and I don't feel sometimes that I'm being pushed into it. It's more like a choice for me, but I am paying attention, being the experiencer that I am, being the spectator that I am paying attention, and I am reflecting, and lots of it is showing up here in these conversations that we have. Should I talk about? No, I think we'll leave this one for tomorrow because, right, it'll tie in better if I had a little bit of something extra tied into it. Like I said, I was on a lot of subjects today, personally, on online, and out and about, and in that little bit of hypervigilance of my own life securities. We'll just leave it at that, right? I am a work in progress. I truly am. And we all are, I guess, right? Okay. Eugene, thank you so much. I hope you're doing good. Oh, yeah. Awesome. Awesome, Eugene. It has been a really, well, it was a nice day. Like I said, I do a lot of work up here, and I do a lot of work right here. And I have to remember, right, that this is work. And so when I feel guilty, like I haven't been more physically active, like a boxer or a runner, I'm not those things, right? You're not going to see me outside jogging down the street. That's not my thing. It's never been my thing, right? But that doesn't make me inactive in any way. My entire life, I have been a little bit of an energy bunny, but it's in the things that I love, right? And yeah, I'm grateful. I love the things that help me out so much and offer up so much because, right, you guys get to, well, I hope, right? Maybe one person even, wouldn't that be cool? To benefit for a lesson that comes across my path. Hannah, oh my goodness, I have not seen you forever. Oh my goodness, it's so nice to see you right at the very end tonight too. You should pop in. I'd love to know how your life has been going. And if you want to, you're welcome. Get a hold of me through Instagram, right? Yeah. Oh my goodness, Anna, it's been forever. And Eugene, thank you so much for everybody who pops in later. Put your feet up after work, right? I hope you had an amazing day. If you're heading off to bed, I hope you have a good sleepy and you wake up tomorrow with one less problem or one more heavy batch of, I don't know, something amazing to help you get over whatever kind of problem you're trying to get through, right? Oh my goodness, another thing, right? My heart goes out to that little village in Switzerland, right? And it just, that avalanche. I don't know if you guys heard, an avalanche just devoured an entire city in Switzerland. Just the whole glacier just fell off the mountain. But there were a few things today, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, just the uniqueness and the uh, I was going to say the weather, but how about if we just say the elements, right? Okay, you guys, I'm off to bed. You guys have a great night. And if you're just getting up, driving off to work, I hope you have an amazing day.